This is Quigg and Cassius for IFL TV in association with MGM Marbella. We're in Leeds here today, ahead of Battle Lines tomorrow night at the First Direct Arena. Live in Sky Sports. With me, I'm trainer Joe Gallagher. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Quigg. Good to see you at long last.
Good to see you. It's been a good couple of weeks. Disappointing in parts in Germany for yourself, but hopefully things can be put right with a rematch for Paul Smith.
Yeah, hopefully. I think what that result did last weekend, if it would have been 115, 113 for Abraham and a closeness and lost by a point, everyone would have said great effort, Paul, and everything else. But because of the injustice and the scoring being so wide, it sort of like gave weight for Paul possibly to be able to get another shot and another opportunity with Abraham. And I think Paul has always had the potential to perform. He just needed the stage, and he did do that last weekend. I think that performance put right a few wrongs in Paul's career where he didn't deliver against a James de Gallagher or Bendel for them fights, and it's give his career that when he does retire whenever credibility now that he fought at the highest level against a well-seasoned world champion. You remember that was Paul's first world title, Abraham's 19th, and did a lot of things right, and it'll give him that self-belief now if he do get the rematch that he can get in there, he can hurt him, and I'll be really looking forward to that.
With a rematch unlikely to take place here, even though everyone would love that here, and I'm sure you would as well, is it crossed your mind about what on earth do you have to do for Paul to, apart from knock him out, which is quite obvious then, but I'm saying what will you have to do to go out there and perform better than what he performed?
Well, exactly. I've just been talking to a few people now, and they were saying, I said, listen, Paul, we've sat down and watched on what Paul went wrong and what he did wrong, and we're like, well, what we're stressing for, no matter what we would have done, whether or not, 6 times we were never getting it, especially with a 119, 109 card, and that's it. The 4 times Abraham was lost, 2 of them have been out of Germany, in Helsinki, in America. Stieglitz was an eye, another one's a disqualification. So they don't lose many in Germany, hardly any at all. But I keep saying to Eddie, and he keeps going mad at me, they'd have to break the bank. If that went to a mandatory position, I'd really want Eddie to go and knock on Barry's door, get some of that Leyton Orient money that he just did for selling the club, and get that fight over here. I've said it earlier on in the week, and I'll say it again. Southland's got David Price. Him v Joshua, the battle of the Olympic heavyweight medalist. It's a great fight. George Groves of Southland against Callum Smith in Liverpool. Paul Smith, Arthur Abraham. Then you've got fighters like Stephen Smith, Tony Bellew. Huge fan support there in Liverpool in an outdoor event. It could happen, but the thing is, he's got to take a punt and run the risk, and hopefully that will bring in. Listen, Arthur Abraham, I think, earned something like over $1 million at the weekend for a defence against Paul, so it'll take a lot of money, but it's a great opportunity to get a world champion. But if we didn't, and we'd have to go over there again, there's a saying, we'd have to knock him out to win, and there's been nothing on Paul, but there's been bigger and better being with Arthur Abraham and not knocked him out, and that's like a mission impossible, that, isn't it?
Well, listen, take it as it comes, see what happens, get the rematch first. And
well, listen, the thing is, like when Matthew lost to Felix Sturm over there, what happened is it looked at people like Sergio Martinez looking at Matthew and other the champions, sort of like, because his performance against Sturm gave him credibility to fight other champions where champions are looking for voluntaries. And I think Paul Smith's performance there for Abraham, either at Andre Ward or at Durrell, would look as a voluntary and go, well, he pushed Arthur Abraham close, we'll give him a shot. So you never know, there's something that comes around the corner. But like I say, he's fought well, he put a good performance in, and I thought on the night, as I walked up the steps, I thought it's a draw, but there was no way more than a round in it either side.
Let's just pretend I'm Eddie Hearn for a second, and I come in and say, Joe, you've got your pick. You can either have Abraham, Durrell, Ward or Froch for Paul Smith. In his next fight, who do you pick?
Who pays the most?
Forget about money for a second. Just talk about the actual fight. Who would you pick for Paul Smith, if you could, out of all the other super middleweight world champions?
I'd say Abraham, if we got him out of Germany, because we've been in with him. We know what he's about, and there's no fear factor there no more. Paul knows, he stood with him, had exchanges with him, and wanted to come again. Andre Ward, chasing shadows there. Carl Froch, saying Carl's a great fighter, and that would be just a brutal fight. Carl won't take a backward step, and when I think about it, I've never even brought Carl Froch into the equation because I see Carl Froch similar to another level, but that'd be a brutal fight, do you understand? And who else is there?
Durrell. Durrell.
Well, I was impressed with Durrell beating Beaker when I watched him in LA, because there was talk possibly Callum Smith and that, but I was impressed with Durrell. I think he's got a really good right hand. He throws it very sharp, very fast, very accurate, and I was very impressed with the way that he dealt with Beaker. Beaker's a strong man, a rough and rugged, and Beaker against any other people, many more people out there, would have broke them with his relentless, with his head, his elbows, and he's outmanned them. I was really impressed with Durrell out there, and Durrell's a horrible fight. I'd have to say Abraham again.
Okay. We should see what happens with that anyway. Let's hope things can be put right. Right, moving on. Callum Smith, 2 fights in the space of 2 months. The fight he has tomorrow night seems like a fight to keep him active ahead of a big fight on the 22nd of November, which is a WBC eliminator. Yeah. Is that how it is?
Yeah, it is. Listen, he done his hand in at the end of last year. He was out for a while. I think he's already fought. 1, 2, 3. This will be his 4th fight this year. Since then, since he came back in April, fought April, I think it's May, he's fought on the Kell Brook show. He's on this one. Kid is fighting tomorrow night. Pintos, 40 wins, 10 losses. Fought Matthew Macklin, was in Matthew's corner when they fought in Dublin. Very strong, durable. Matthew won on points. He's a solid fighter. I'd give rounds, and that's what I want for Callum Smith tomorrow night. To get a stoppage would be a great result, but it's more about getting rounds under the bank. After that, then we've got a huge fight. It's an opponent. When I went to watch Arthur Abraham fight him in Berlin in May, I came away thinking he'll be ideal for Callum Smith. That's a tester for Callum Smith. He's a good boxer. He won the early rounds of Abraham. He's mixed in world class. He's fought Beaker. He beat Coran Gavor, who's a really good fighter. Gavor's been in a mixing company with like Felix Sturm, so he's been around the world scene and world opposition a while, and he's a hungry fighter, and I think he'd feel insulted that we've gone to pick him out for Callum Smith. Callum Smith is not being pro 2 years yet. He won't be 2 years till November, and yet here we are in a world title eliminator with him, so I'm sure he'll be coming over wanting to prove the upstart wrong and show that world experience that he's fought at the big stage. But first up is tomorrow night, and hopefully we come through that, win well, come out with no hand injuries or cuts or anything, and listen, that's a real big fight. There was a few opponents that we wanted. One was Rabras. He didn't want to take the fight. Next one was the one who we've got in the end, and who was the other one? There was a third one, can't remember. Oh, Brian Vera turned down the fight. So people criticise sometimes Callum for who he's fighting, what he's fighting, but I think Callum Smith, in the short time he's been professional, the fights and the opponents that he's been matched against, I think have been very credible, and they've been good learning fights. Patrick Mendy early on in his career, Tobias Webb, Bioisa, he's been abroad in LA in box now. He's fighting a durable, solid guy that's been with good fighters, and then obviously the big one at the end of the year, and we'll learn more about Callum Smith after that, whether he is ready or not for the big fights and the big names that we want in 2015.
Eddie Hearn made a statement this week that Callum Smith would beat George Groves now. Do you share this sentiment with Eddie Hearn?
I think the fight with George Groves is a really good fight. It's something that we're excited about. I really do believe in Callum Smith, and I do feel get George at the right time, I do think Callum Smith will beat George Groves. George Groves, listen, good fighter, good amateur. He's proved how well he's done coming through. He's had some great wins. He performed brilliant against Carl Froch in the first one, and in the second one got caught with a humdinger of a shot in the same way Paul Smith got caught by a shot by George Groves. But I do think it's about styles, and I think Callum Smith, you can see him now, he's 24, and Callum won't be near his best till he's 26. He'll grow into a good super middleweight or possibly a light heavyweight. But if that fight's around next year, last week we were in Germany, I said to Callie Sauderland, we're after George Groves, we've got to be hot on his heels, and that's a fight I think next year which will appeal to everyone. I said to Callum when he first turned pro, I think you'll be a little bit like Amir and Rika, in the sense that not to the levels of support and anything else for everyone gives me stick, but you'll bypass domestic level very quickly, in the fact that Ricky fought for the British once, Amir never fought for it, and Callum, where he is now, number 10 in the WBC, going against another well-ranked WBC fighter as an eliminator, shows possibly we may have gone past that stage now already. It'd be nice for him to fight for the British title at some point, but the main thing with Callum is something like that, sometimes you've got to let him off the rein a little bit, and I see what he does in sparring with world-class fighters, and I'm more than confident in him.
I'll give you a scenario. Paul Smith gets his second shot at Abraham, vacates the British title. The British title is available at some point next year. Between him and Rocky Fielding, is that a fight you'd entertain for Callum?
Yeah, we'll take that fight.
Yeah.
Callum Smith will do that. Regardless if he's got the George Groves world title, Callum Smith, I'll let him fight that for the British title. If it's Rocky Fielding, I'll take that more than happy. I don't think Rocky would take it though.
No? Huge fighting in Liverpool and domestically will be massive.
But, yeah, the thing is though, but by that time I say Callum's on a world title eliminator, and it's like you get a world ranked middleweight, do you bring him back down to the local USBA or whatever North American thing? Callum will be up there with this win. Possibly now, after these 2 wins, Callum will be up to like number 6 and he'll be breathing down George Groves' neck, and I think a big fight with Callum Smith, George Groves, is a huge fight.
We shall wait and see. A lot of fights has to happen for Callum in order for him to get into that position.
No, definitely, but I think with him and with these more, you got to remember that these type of fighters like Joshua, Luke Campbell, Callum Smith, who are world-class amateurs that travelled all over the world and didn't turn up at tournaments and go, we're fighting bums, like when you first turn pro. They're fighting the best in the world at every competition they go to, so they're used to being at that. And the thing with Callum, same with Scotty Cardle, was to get them through them first 9-10 fights as quick as they can, and then start putting them in meaningful testing fights. And I think Mendy, Tobias Webb have been Biosa were good fights for Callum Smith. He's got a good test tomorrow night, and then obviously he's got a huge test. I think we may have jumped 2 levels. I've seen people say already we've got to get beat with Callum Smith against the Saloka, but we'll only find out on the night. And if it gets beat, then we come back and it's no shame. He's only been a pro 2 years, but we won't get beat, and that's the thing. Callum Smith will win, and people have got to start believing in him a lot more, and there's more for him to come. You speak to all the kids that he sparred, Tony Bellew, Nathan Cleverley, Carl Froch, all of them, Kid Chocolate, Ishmael Salik, they all rate the kid and know what he's capable of. I just need Callum to bring that into the fight for a big fight, and I've given him the challenge there now, win this, and I've asked Eddie to make the match, and I think it's a good fight and one of the standout fights in the undercard of that show. What do you think
of Callum and
that Saloka?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen little bits of him since he was announced as an opponent, and I think it will show really where Callum is with that test. I know every time one of his fights is being touted as a test, he's sort of come through, and then it quickly gets dismissed after it's not a test, just because he's got rid of him quickly or whatever. The Biose fight gave him the rounds that he maybe have needed, but I think that'll be a good stead of where Callum is going into next year, which is going to be a huge year for him.
Yeah, especially like I say, the kid has been in addition with Abraham Beaker. He beat Koran Gavor, who's an absolutely brilliant amateur. He's fought Felix Sturm and another few world-class fighters, so he's mixing around world-class fighters for a while. So like I said to you, most of it feels disrespected in the fact that this young gun is wanting to fight him, and he'll be coming with a point to prove, so that just adds to it. And this is where Callum's back's against the wall, and let's see what he can do. And me as a coach, I need to see him during, alright then, the LA job, some will say the job tomorrow night, aren't testers. No, but the part of development and working the shots that we worked on in training, the testers, Bioise, Tobias Webb, Mendy, and now this one, they're the ones like I want to see how he reacts. Pressure, you're not picked as the favourite, it's 50-50, and this stands him in good stead.
Moving on to Scott Quigg. People suggest that you protect Scott Quigg too much.
Further from the truth whatsoever. Eddie Hearn, if you speak to Eddie Hearn, you speak to Scott Quigg, me and Eddie are falling out all the time about, as I said before, about breaking the bank for Callum Smith, Santa Cruz, Carl Frampton, all the time. We're mad for the fights, mad for it all the time. Last I've heard now, Eddie's put emails and phone calls into McGuigan and Frampton. They've not returned them. I see Frank Warren's announced on an interview that Carl Frampton still has a contract with Box Nation, so I'm sure they can't do nothing no more. He's got a mandatory with Chris Avalos. So what are we supposed to do in the meantime? Sit down and do nothing. There's been a few opponents put forward to us that we were going to take for the last fight. Even Quigg said to me today in the gym today, phone Virgil Hunter up or ask Eddie to phone them up, see what Abner Mares is. We'll move up and wait and fight Abner Mares. They had the fight Scott Quigg wants to be in, and we get stick, and it's like, it's not a case, oh, this is who we're fighting. These are the kids that are the only ones that'll take the fight. Like Becco, we went 12 rounds to Regondo in December, turned down the Manchester job. What can we do that? Olgi Akra turned it down, Victor Archinian turned it down. Good solid fighters turn the fights down, so what we're supposed to do, we only can, and that's in protecting, that's all, protecting him. Everyone who sees Quigg in the gym, everyone else sees him go to America, coaches that come to our gym with fighters like Billy Nelson and Josh Warrington, their trainers, they all leave and say, we didn't realise he was that good, and the performance will come in the ring, and listen, all we can do at the meantime is beat who's put in front of us, but Eddie Hearn, everyone else will confirm, listen, we are absolutely, me and Quigg, absolutely mithering Eddie to bits to get these fights done.
I mean, there's certain things we do know that, I mean, Eddie has offered Santa Cruz the fight. You're more than willing to travel out to America to fight him. Obviously the ongoing talks
either in December against Alvarez on the Alvarez undercard, and we've also said we'll go in May to Vegas on the Canelo Cotto undercard. That's a huge pay-per-view event, and I think Canelo Santa Cruz usually fights on all Alvarez's undercards, and we've said we'll do that. Carl's out till February, he's got to fight Avalos, so we're like, well, we're going to fight in Santa Cruz then. Do you know what I mean? We're not hanging on, we've got to go there, that's where we want to go. Now today Scott Quigg has asked me to ask Eddie to get in touch and see his Abner Mares about Scott Quigg saying he's in the gym, he's training, he's fighting, and we'll move up and fight Abner Mares. That's how we are thinking. It's like, well, let's all move up to featherweight then, because that's where they've all moved up to. Now people will say to us, well, there's Regondo and all that, and just to explain that happens, it'll happen, we're not running from it. The difference is Floyd Mayweather, and that's why everyone wants to fight Floyd Mayweather, gets paid well. Whether you get $1 million or $2 million, you get paid well. When you fight Regondo, one of the best in the world, and a murderous puncher, you don't get paid well. So if I asked you, Coogan, to go and do a hard job for no money, you're not going to do it, are you? And that's the difference. Now if you're going to say, fight Regondo, there's $1 million, I'd say, give me the contract and we'll sign it now. There isn't a problem, but the work and the job in hand, the money has to relate to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and Regondo was no different. Now if you're saying there's $1 million to fight Regondo, or £1 million, we'll sign and we'll fight, but we're not going to fight him. I think the purse bid for Avalos and Regondo was $300,000, 200 grand split. That's like, what type of money is that? It's not good. Where Regondo
turned down that route, didn't he? Anyway?
Yeah, that's right, yeah, because there wasn't enough money, but Regondo got $700,000 for his last fight. No, Santa Cruz did. So it's like, well, Santa Cruz has got more money to it, and it's a very winnable fight for Scott Quigg, and it's like, we're going after him, we think we can win that. And we've got to understand as well, I'm sorry for running, because I read things, I see things, it's just explaining it. Scott Quigg beating Carl Frampton here in Britain is a great fight, okay? In America, not really, don't do anything. Scott Quigg beat Santa Cruz in America, that's a huge result in America. And boxing was run in America on the wet sides. Scott Quigg overnight can be a name in America by beating Santa Cruz. Does that make sense, Coogan? So for the money, that's worth the risk. Beating Carl Frampton's a great fight in Britain, great fight in England, and it's fantastic, and we'd love that. But the ramifications of it then in America is still Santa Cruz is the best. It's better than any of them anyway. So it's like, well, damned if you're doing your damned don't. But by beating Santa Cruz, then you're like, right, you get everyone's respect over there, and you've cracked them. Very much like when Ricky and Junior Witter, once Junior Witter got the WBC belt, they all thought them two should fight. Ricky went over to America, fought the welterweight, I've got his bleeding name now, fought the welterweight, and then carried on, cracked America, and he never came back then because he came a name over there. And I think Scott Quigg's style over in America would absolutely suit him to a T.
If Scott Quigg had the choice of Frampton or Santa Cruz fight in his next fight, what would Scott Quigg pick? Frampton. Do you see why? I know, like I said, every time Scott's opponent in the last sort of 3 or 4 fights been mentioned, Scott does get a lot of stick. You get a lot of stick. Can you see it from a fan point of view why they're bitching about Quigg's opponents?
No, I understand that because it's very much like the middleweight time. What do you know what I mean? You had Darren Barker, Martin Murray, Matthew Macklin, and all them never fought, did they? And Matthew and still Martin could still happen. Ricky never fought Junior, Joe never fought. So it isn't something that we've not seen before. Kellen Mayer at the moment as well. things have happened in the past, and this one, but it's not for the want and not wanting it. That's what it's got to understand. It's just very much like Tyson and Lewis. How long did that take for it got together and they'd secure it in the ring? Different networks, all that stuff. So we're just at that different scale. They've got a contract with Box Nation. They've got what they've got to do with their world title. Scott Quigg's over this side, but somewhere along the line, down the way, someone will be free this side or someone will be free that side, and the fight has to happen. The public will demand that. But in the meantime, and it's clear to see, Carl has to fight Chris Avalos. So in the meantime, we're not going to sit here and go twiddle our thumbs. Like Santa Cruz, he just fought his sparring partner. He got some stick in America, but he did. He fought his sparring partner, Quigg, and everyone knew that. So it's like, but it kept him active, and by keeping active, you're keeping your weight down, you're keeping your tools sharp and everything else. So we've got to go and fight before the end of the year. We want it. It isn't got a big cruise for whatever reason, but what we have saying is well, after that then, once Carl's done Avalos and he's got him out of the way, there can really be no excuse. And if we can get the Santa Cruz or the Frampton fight done, we'll do it. If he has to fight Avalos, we're fighting Santa Cruz, and if we win that, then that'll be, imagine that, that's a brilliant fight. But I've heard Gary Hyde wants to put in the Rigondo situation, so this one we could be fighting Rigondo next spring, and that's a fight we'd take.
You know, you're talking about not waiting about, obviously Frampton has to fight Avalos and etc, etc. Kid Galahad, is that a fight that even would entertain?
Yeah, I understand Kid Galahad and where he's coming from, and Mick Hennessy and everything else. The thing with Kid Barry is his last fight was in Sheffield Arena. Okay, it was on Channel 5. Don't think it was that full, you can tell me. I think there's only one person from the press media, and he's doing the right things, he's winning the titles and he's moving on. But when you've got Scott Quigg who's getting stick for not fighting the best, which is Frampton, Rigondo, Santa Cruz, alright, why should he then come down and fight someone, no disrespect to Barry, who's below him, John Will saying that don't bring money to the table, or a title, when really we're trying to get rid of them shackles and fight the people ahead of us. Now, Barry's last opponent, I heard Dominic saying Scott won't fight him. No, we agreed to fight him. We said yeah, we'd fight him, but the governing bodies and everyone else went, can't fight him, you get slated for fighting him, 14-0 kid, blah blah, no one's heard of him, farm worker. As people are saying, Quigg's fighting, but it's like kid fights him and it's like a great result. So it's very much, there's a stick sometimes, and certain fighters and certain times, Matthew Hatton for example, were beaten with it no matter what they did. They could do no right from wrong, do you understand? And Scott Quigg, is that witch hunt season. But all Scott Quigg's got to do is stay focused, stay disciplined, and come through this year, beat who he has to beat coming up, and absolutely nail either Carl Frampton or Santa Cruz down for the fight next year. We definitely want one of them by the summer next year. I hope Cal beats Chris Avalos, which is a tough fight. I've watched Chris Avalos fighting all the time, and that sets it all up. But in the meantime, we're not going to sit and wait while Carl's going on. Now, I know people say you go and fight Santa Cruz and you lose. Well, Matthew Macklin's lost and Martin Murray's lost, and that's still a big fight. Amir's lost, and Kel, that's still a fight. Do you understand? That fight will always be there because it's a big domestic fight. It'll always be there. And they saw the 0-0, but it's got to be one of them two. And Eddie has been told all the time, and if you ask that question to Quigg, Quigg will absolutely go for your throat at the moment. He's that wound up about it, do you understand? He absolutely wants one of them in the ring, and I'll get Eddie now over this weekend to get in touch with Golden Boy about Abner Mares, and it could be him. We desperately want to get our hands on a big name.
Alright, well listen Joe, only 24 minutes today, but listen, thank you very much.
And I don't know, you asked me a fucking long-winded question, so. But I get misinterpreted all the time, so I just want to put it right, because we get unnecessary sticks. Scott does, in protecting. And let me just say this, the last three kids Scott Quigg's fought all fought for world titles, and we beat him better than him. That last kid had a life or death with Jamie McDonald 12 months ago for the European title. We blew him out in 3. The first one after Salinas went 3 or 4, Montiel, we did him in 2. The Spider, Boxing News thought Quigg on points, we blew him away in 2. So what more can we do? His punching power is ferocious. He is one of the hardest hitters in British boxing at the moment, and instead of saying the opponent's rubbish, give credit to the punching power of him, because he is a phenomenal puncher. Pound for pound, one of the hardest punchers in British boxing at the moment. Sorry.
It's alright, don't apologise, good. Alright, listen Joe, best of luck tomorrow with Callum Johnson also fighting on the bill, and Callum Smith.
Did you know them two?
Yeah.
4 years ago today we were at the opening ceremony at the Commonwealth Games in Delhi.
Today?
And here they are together, boxing in a show amazing in 4 years. The wheels of the world. Callum Johnson struck gold at them games, and Callum Smith struck silver. Here they are 4 years later on a pro show together. Callum Smith not even a pro yet, 2 years, and going fighting a world title eliminator.
Interesting.
Yeah, just a little stat for you.
Love a stat. Alright, Joe Gallagher, thanks for talking to IFL TV, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow at fight night.
Yeah, brilliant, thanks mate.